The Tao of Self-Confidence, episode 486. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a phenomenal lady on the show today. She is the founder of Madana Yoga and also the co-founder of Soulscape, and I'm just really excited to have her on and share her story with us today on self-confidence. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Theresa Shan. Theresa, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Hi, Sheena. Yes, thanks so much for having me. So basically, I started Madana Yoga about 4 or 5 years ago. It's an accessory brand here in Singapore because at the time there was not really much other opportunities or other offerings available for yoga accessories like mats, props, and blocks when I first started teaching yoga. So I'm a yoga teacher. I've been teaching for about 8 years now here in Singapore. And when I started the brand, it was really to kind of offer an alternative to the import brands that we had coming from the US or the very low quality products that we had on offer here. For Soulscape, it's an online platform where we share articles, reviews, and interviews about how to live healthier and basically discover what there is out here available in order to stay healthy and keep you active throughout your day. And then through that, we've also developed a festival. We have a once a year what we call the Mindful Movement Festival, where we actually bring everyone together on the beach, and we have a one-day workshops and songs and entertainment, lots of different activities that are happening throughout the day. So that's pretty fun. So those are the two main things that I keep myself busy with.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Theresa, what's your cultural background?
I'm Singaporean. My mom is Singaporean, but my dad is Dutch. So I grew up half in Singapore and half in the Netherlands. Until I was 7, I was in Singapore. And then the rest, up until my teens, I was in the Netherlands. So I have quite a mixed bag of upbringing, which is quite very, very varied, I would guess. Singapore is quite conservative and the Netherlands obviously is very open. So very fortunate to have the upbringing that I had. And if people ask me, which country do you prefer? I think it depends, because when I was growing up, I preferred Holland over Singapore because of when I was in school, and the schooling system here is pretty strict and very constrictive. Whereas now I'm actually living in Singapore and I'm enjoying being here. So I think it depends. So maybe it will change again when I go older.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
Okay, I think my favorite self-confidence quote is actually very simple, and I don't actually know who said it, but it's basically trust is confidence. And that's it. It's trusting and believing in yourself, and that is confidence, as it were.
Thanks for sharing that. And, that's a great quote because, confidence is all about trusting yourself and your abilities and what you're capable of. And, even though it's short, it's very powerful. So I really love that. Thanks for sharing that. And, in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
So I've been a little bit on a journey this year or last year and this year as well. And I think that now for me, confidence is really believing in yourself, like you said, and trusting that you know what's best for you. And I think sometimes, I'm not sure if this has to do with age. I'm not saying that I'm super old or whatever, but as you grow older, you kind of learn who you are and what you're good at and who you are as a person. And I think that the trust is confidence then comes in, because trusting yourself and knowing who you are will help to make those decisions along the way that will define you and define what's important to you and things to do and things to leave. And before, I think it's easy to kind of get swayed in other people's beliefs and other people's ways of making decisions. And I think that for me, after I discovered that, okay, for me, really, I need to trust in myself and believe in myself. And maybe the decision that I made is not the right one, but as long as it feels good, and if when I'm making the decision, it feels like the right decision, it's going to be the right one for me, at least at this point in my life. And so I feel like that's the most important part. And that's how I kind of define what self-confidence is for me.
Thanks for sharing that. And, that's a great definition. And yeah, it really is knowing, what you tolerate and not tolerate, what's best for you. And nobody knows that except for yourself, right? And you'll know that by going through your journey and working on yourself and loving yourself in the process. So thanks for sharing that definition. And what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I mean, I don't think it was it's been a journey, a gradual process. Like I said, as I get older, being more sure of myself and knowing what's right for me and what's not. And also, I guess accepting, because I'm an introvert, and so I like to call myself an extroverted introvert. So obviously at times you can't be an introvert, and I teach yoga, so I have to be in front of people, but obviously my innate self-desire is always to stand back and listen to others speak rather than be the forefront. And accepting that and not feeling bad that that's what or who I am, or the nature that what I tend to do, being okay with that. And so through that, also learning the different ways of being more confident, as an introvert, and what things I need to come out of my shell for, and things that I don't need to come out of my shell for, or feel like, okay, I can leave that, and the trust comes in here again as well. And I guess before I discovered that I know myself better than anybody else, I used to, I suppose, change or try to change to the environment, or try to be somebody else, not completely different, but like, in the example of the introvert versus the extrovert, maybe be a little bit more outgoing, and especially in social circles. So I think that's the most significant thing that I can think of right now that was different before. And I guess the problem with that also is that then you make decisions that you think are the right decisions, but for the situation, but they may not be the right decisions for me at the time.
Thanks for sharing that. And, I think that's something we can relate, trying to change to the environment, especially I'm sure living in Singapore, there's certain things that, they tell women not to do or to do. And we think that maybe that's the way. And, it's up to you to make a decision whether if it works for you or not. And I like how you mentioned, you're learning to be confident as an introvert, because most people think if you're confident you have to be like loud, and you have to be like friendly, and like be an extra, like a super like extrovert. And really you don't have to. You can still be an introvert and still be confident in what you do. And what was that point in your life when you realized you can go out there and just be the person that you are today? Like, what was that aha moment?
I think I got the aha moment like last year about, I guess if I really have to define one aha moment, then that was it. I do think that it was a gradual process as well, once again, as I grow older. But the process, 6 months ago, I just decided that I'm just going to I just need to make a change. And I think it was a conscious decision that, I'm going to be more, take charge of what's going on in my life, even though, I'm running my own business and things. And many times people think that when you run your own business, then you have control. But sometimes you really feel that you don't have control, because there's so many factors that come into play that you don't have control over. And sometimes you in a business, you're just very reactive. You're reacting to whatever has happened. Okay, now we've got a client, so okay, now we can do this. Oh, this month we don't have a client, what are we going to do? Like, okay, so sometimes you feel like you're chasing after the fact. And so this year, or midway past like 2017, I think my partner and I, we decided that, okay, we're going to start thinking of ourselves more, and the business then comes second, because we always used to put the business first. Like every single decision we made was about business first. And so I think at that point we were like, okay, we need to not forget about ourselves, and make sure that not to forget us and put ourselves first. And so this year for me is about rediscovering myself. And I think the aha moment really for me was that I need to put myself first. And through that, I started listening to some some audios, and I know it sounds very cliche, but it really helps to kind of find your feet again. And there's a few that I really liked, and they were talking a lot about confidence and about trusting yourself. And so I think yeah, so I think that's really I guess 2017 for me was the aha moment that I discovered that I need to not forget about myself, that working on myself and being and trusting who I am, and trusting that, you know, if things don't go exactly the way I want, that maybe it's just the way it was meant to be, and being okay with that. And I think that was the hardest part. And so slowly I'm getting used to that right now.
Thanks for sharing that. And, you know, that's a great realization that you have, you know, especially as women, we like to take control of every situation, right? Not realizing there's just some things you can't control. You just got to learn to let it go. The only thing you can control is how you react to it, right? And, you know, like you mentioned, some things don't work out, and sometimes that could be a blessing in disguise, right? Instead of thinking like, oh, I can't believe this happened, it's like, well, I'm glad actually it didn't happen, because then, you know, this would have been the outcome, and I like the outcome that I have now. And so it's great that you were able to realize that. And, you know, because of these changes that you're making, what's your life been like now?
So I think I'm just scratching the surface right now. I feel that things are getting much better. I'm much more calm. I'm much more relaxed. I just feel like when I need to make decisions, I just try to listen to my intuition more. I listen to my feelings more. I know it sounds a little bit like wishy-washy, but I think for the past 10 years that I've been working, I've always relied on my intellect or my mind to make decisions for myself, or what I felt made more sense, or what's better. And I think now I've come to a stage where I'm just going to listen to just my intuition, and if it feels good. And for example, if I need to make a decision about something, or if I knowing or thinking of what I need to do next, obviously you have to analyze the options, and you can't just jump into, oh, okay, this feels good or whatever. Like, definitely analyze everything and get all the answers and the pros and the cons together. But I feel still at the end of the day, it's still your heart that needs to make the decision. I mean, I think some things definitely can be transactional, but when it comes to deciding about like where to take my life, or what path I want to go on, how, do what I want to do with the business. Definitely these things are very transactional, and they do require thought and careful planning. But I think that at some point I also need to then step back and trust that I know what I'm doing, and I know that whatever feeling I have inside, because sometimes it's funny, like you can make all these transactional decisions, and in your mind that this is what you should do, but yet in your gut you feel like it doesn't feel right. And so that's the feeling that I'm going to start listening more, or at least taking them into account, rather than putting them aside, just thinking, oh, I'm just being a woman, I'm being emotional again, so let's just leave that aside. But now for this year going forward, I'm actually going to take that into consideration.
Thanks for sharing that. You know, that's great that you're learning to make decisions based on your intuition and how you feel. And, you know, our intuition tells us a lot more than we realize. And I think sometimes we take it for granted because we're so used to like analytical thinking and over analyzing and trying to find a reason for every single thing we do. Not realizing sometimes if it feels right, you just go ahead and do it. And sometimes it might not look as what you envision it in your head, but in the end it'll all work out. So thanks for sharing that. And, you know, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey of self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
I would give these women, I think what I would say is release the resistance. Sometimes when we overthink things, or like when we are too caught up with the intellectual part, there can be resistance in whatever it is that you're thinking of doing. And sometimes when you release the resistance and kind of just say, okay, I'm just going to accept like whatever it is, and this is the way it is, and then somehow the answers then come. So I think that's the one thing that I've discovered these past few months, and that I'm going to be living my life by as well, is is because sometimes when you really overthink things and you kind of get stressed out about it, or you get anxiety about it, and that's what I mean by resistance. There's something about that holds us from them being able to listen to that intuition. And I see this all the time when I teach yoga, that sometimes there's people, when they're holding the pose, they're so tense, and when they're so tense, they can't really enjoy what's happening. And it's just about then just releasing and relaxing a little bit. And once they do that, everything starts to happen for them, and everything starts to open up, and they feel so much better. And I'm starting to do this in my own life now. And so I think definitely the one advice I would give is to release resistance, so that then your inner voice and your instincts can start to speak up.
Thanks for sharing that tip. And I really love actually that tip that you mentioned, releasing the resistance, because we we love to overthink everything. It sometimes keeps us from taking action, right? We just have that analysis paralysis, and sometimes we just got to go for it and just not think about it, just do it. And whatever outcome happens, just be grateful for it. So thanks for sharing that. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, or check out some of your work, check out some accessories for their yoga practices, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yeah, they can head over to madanayoga.com. Madana is spelled Madana, or Soulscape. Soulscape is on soulscape.asia if you want to read up about how to live healthier. The unique thing about Soulscape is that it's an Asian context. So we talk about using Asian herbs or Asian foods and things like that. So that's the difference to your usual topics on health. And then social, you can find me on Theresa_Shan on Instagram, or on my website, theresashan.com.
Thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Theresa, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Theresa's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I just really want to thank Theresa for taking the time to share her story and tips with us on self-confidence. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Sheena. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. It was really great having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Get your free self-talk tape for building self-confidence by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.